Hello, you're watching James. My name's James. You're watching me and I'm talking about watches. Now today I am going to try and answer a question that I have been asked on many occasions, and that is, what is the perfect size watch collection? Now I answer this question in a particular way, and I always answer it in exactly the same way. It is an answer that I sort of have come up with over the years, and it is an answer that I've applied to my own collecting of watches. Now I answer this question in a couple of different sections. Firstly, a watch collection needs to be the right size for you. It needs to be a size of collection that you both can afford and that you're actually going to wear the watches in the collection. There is absolutely no point having a collection of watches that you can't financially afford. Now, for some people that may mean you have one watch in your collection and it might be a super affordable watch, and that is perfectly fine. There's absolutely nothing wrong with not spending a huge amount of money on watches, and there's nothing wrong with having a small collection of watches. If, however, you've got a much bigger budget than most of us and you've got 20 very high-end luxury watches and that has no financial issues to you, well, that's fantastic. You know, you get to enjoy these lovely luxury watches. But what it does need to be is a comfortable financial level for you. Don't stretch yourself, don't go into debt, don't spend more than you're happy and comfortable with spending on that collection. And the collection should be the size of watches that you actually wear them. I don't really see the point of having watches in a collection that you never wear. Now, there is a little caveat to that. Obviously, if you have a watch in your collection that has some sort of emotional significance to you, if it is a watch that has perhaps been handed down to you through the family or it's been a gift, that's perfectly fine. You may not wear that watch. That doesn't really count when I'm talking about this sort of size of collection. That's a little bit different, okay? So let's put those watches aside if you have one of those or two of those in your collection. But the problem with this first half of this answer means that you've only got a certain amount of watches that you can buy, both financially and that you're actually going to wear. So what happens when you want another watch? What happens when you start lusting after a particular watch? What happens when you want to scratch that itch of watch collecting? Well, that's why I have always had my entire watch collecting sort of experience, a watch in my collection that I call my rotating watch. And I always had one watch in my collection. It was one spot in my watch box that I would buy and I would sell and I would buy again. And I knew that this watch in my collection, it would rotate through. Now, sometimes this watch would stay in my collection for 2 or 3 months. I'd have it for a few months, I'd enjoy it, I'd own it, I would wear it. It would be a watch that I'd been really wanting and really sort of lusting after. But when I bought it, I sort of had that initial rush. I enjoyed it, but fairly quickly I sort of fell out of love with it and I just didn't wear it anymore. So that happened a couple of times. But on other occasions, I had a watch sitting in this position in my watch box for a couple of years because it was a watch that I particularly loved. It was a watch that I was continually wearing. So I was not in any rush to sell the watch, to just fill it with another watch. But I really enjoyed having this rotating watch in my collection because firstly, it filled that little void in me of watch collecting. It meant that I still had the opportunity and the experiences of seeking out a new watch to buy every now and then. It also gave me the option and the ability to have a different watch in my collection regularly without allowing my collection to explode into a much larger collection, a collection that I could not manage both financially or actually wear on my wrist. So you may ask me now, well, now that I've gone from being a sort of private collector of watches through to now a content creator on YouTube, how has that affected my sort of answer to this, how big is your collection? I have to say that I'm applying those same rules to myself now that I was back then. The only difference is that one rotating watch has now expanded into about 3 or 5 rotating watches. And I've sort of had to do that, partly because I then get an opportunity to wear more watches, but mostly because then I get more opportunities to have watches available for this channel to create content. But I'm applying those same rules. I'm still buying watches within my budget. I'm still buying watches that I enjoy. I'm only ever buying watches that I actually want to wear, not because I'm specifically wanting to make content for the channel. I'm buying these watches for me. It just happens to be that I get to then create content for the channel as well. And I'm finding mostly that this is actually working really well for me. The only issue I have had is that these sort of 5 rotating watches, a couple that have come into the collection have moved across to my permanent collection. So my permanent core collection has expanded a little bit. But I have been fairly strict on myself because it would be so easy to allow my collection to explode. And I do really want to wear all the watches in my collection. So you may ask, what sort of watches did I have in this one rotating spot? Well, there's a couple of watches that stand out to me. Firstly, I had the Seiko Sub 033. This is a beautiful watch, and as a watch that I'm so happy that I was able to own for about 18 months. I owned this one for about 18 months before I flipped it and put it into another watch. But if I hadn't had this rotating spot in my collection, I never would have bought the Sub 033. It is a watch that I thought perhaps may join my core collection, but I wasn't really convinced about it because it was a slightly different style of watch to what I generally wear day to day. But by having this rotating spot in my collection, it allowed me to own that watch and allowed me to justify to myself spending the money on it. It gave me the opportunity to sell another watch to partially fund this new Seiko, and it gave me that opportunity to wear it and love it and enjoy it. When I sold that, I actually ended up buying the Islander ISL3, which is the SKX 009 Homage. And that was really important to me and really special to me because it actually changed my view on watches a little bit. It sort of widened my eyes to Homage watches. It widened my eyes to different options that are out there beyond the sort of mainstream watches. And again, having that spot in my collection that allowed me to rotate through and try something a little bit different, like that Islander watch, really allowed me to sort of broaden my horizons with my watch collecting. And it also helped put me on a pathway that then led to me creating this channel. So how do you now apply these rules to yourself and your own watch collecting? Well, it is fairly simple. Remember, within your own budget, what you're comfortable with. Have a core collection of watches that you actually do wear. And then it doesn't matter how many those are, as long as you're actually wearing them and enjoying them. And then have one, maybe two spots if you're that kind of person that you can rotate through. That way your watch collection is not going to explode to some large amount that you're just never going to be able to wear all of them, but it gives you that opportunity actually to wear these nice new different watches and give you that little bit of an opportunity to search out and find these lovely new watches. So that's my answer to what is the perfect watch collection size. I understand I'm not giving you a perfect watch collection size. You know, if I could say to you 3 watches is the perfect watch collection size or 9 watches is the perfect watch collection size, then that's what I would be telling you. But it wouldn't be the correct answer because everybody's watch collection size is different depending on the person. But I think what I've just told you, my actual answer to the question, I think is actually a really good answer and it really applies well to most people. And it's certainly applied to me and it certainly continues to apply to me up until this day. Now guys, if you're watching this video and you haven't already subscribed to the channel, I'd really appreciate it if you just click on that subscribe button. And as always, I hope to see you in another video because I'm going to keep making videos for this channel. Thanks for that. See you soon.